Welcome, my friends.
Hey, William.
Hello. Simon, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Could you tell the podcast listeners where you are podcasting from?
So I'm in Toronto, Canada, near the corner of Yonge and Eglinton, if you live in Toronto, and thrilled to be here.
Great to see you, my friend.
You too.
Mai, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Quite well. Could you tell the listeners where you are podcasting from and what you do in the band?
Yeah. So right now I'm in Toronto as well. Queen and Spadina, the best corner. For those who don't know, it's a little sketchy, but not kidding. It's pretty good. And I'm the singer, songwriter, guitar player in the band.
You have some responsibilities there. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You too.
Cian, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you.
Could you tell the podcast listeners where you are tuning in from and what you do in the band, please?
Yeah. I'm in Toronto as well. I'm in Colin's house right now in the east end of the city, and I play bass and bring vibes.
Love it. And Colin,
I'm sitting beside Cian in my house as well, and I play guitar and do some semi-on-tune backup singing.
hello, everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page, host of this podcast feature called Surprise Cast. SWiiMS band began their journey in 2019 when fate brought them together. Through a Craigslist ad, this meeting set the stage for a musical adventure that would soon captivate audiences with their eclectic and sparkling sound. Despite the challenges presented by a global lockdown, SWiiMS persevered and released their EP in 2020 and the debut full-length album Into the Blue Night in 2023 to critical acclaim. As SWiiMS continues to evolve, their commitment to crafting innovative and infectious music remains unwavering. With a strong start and a promising future, guess what? They're here in the podcast studio alongside a gentleman, a true music nerd in the best sense, DJ extraordinaire Simon Leclerc of DKFM Radio. He hosts a fantabulous show called Melomania Safety Zone. Before we begin some icebreaker questions, Simon, can you tell us what you've been up to recently? What's been going on in your life? Anything you want to share?
Well, we spoke before, it's been a little while, but I'm still entrenched in my psychotherapy practice. That's kind of the 95% of my life component right now. I'm trying to help people and support folks. And then in that 5%, I do my radio shows. And so as you mentioned, my Melomania Safety Zone that airs every second Thursday night on DKFM. And that's my reprieve, my 5% reprieve for myself that I love to do, that fills me up and lets me be me.
Yes. And I think you forgot to mention you did some traveling recently, yeah?
Oh, that's right. You follow me on social media. I forgot. So yeah, we went over to the UK. I needed a break. And so we went over to the UK, and I think I'm one of the few people who ever got a sunburn in Scotland, but that happened. And so spent about a week in Scotland and a little over a week in London, visiting friends and family and having a great time. Such a wonderful part of the world.
Mai, what have you been up to recently?
Not much. I did also go to Europe recently, just for a vacation with my partner. I went to France and Germany. So I lived in France when I was like a teenager, and I went to visit one of the families that I'm friends with over there. And then, yeah, we just been, I guess, rehearsing with the band in my free time whenever I have some free, half an hour or, 5 hours, whatever time I have during the weekend. I'll record a bit, play with some ideas. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Enjoying the fall. It's lovely out here. Lots of colors everywhere.
Cian, what about you? What have you been up to?
I bought a J45 there a couple of weeks ago. A Gibson J45. That was pretty big news. And my wife had a baby as well. Pretty big news.
Wait, so the Gibson comes first before the baby?
Yeah.
Hey, 2 babies you got.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Cheers. It's been good.
And, so what's daddyhood like so far? You getting any sleep?
Yeah, so far so good. It's been easier than I thought it would be so far, you know? Don't feel bad saying that, and I feel like it's going to come bite me in the ass, but, you know.
Oh, good times are ahead. Good times are ahead. That's fabulous. And healthy boy or girl?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, a girl called Lucy.
Aw,
Cian O'Ruanaidh.
very cool. Congratulations. All right, and we're going to leave it up.
Oh,
Colin.
Yeah. I run a golf course. So this time of year, we're just winding down, but it's very, very busy because we don't have any staff. So it's, everyone goes back to school. So I'm kind of running around all day, every day, lugging golf bags and helping people out. But that ends in a week. And a couple of weeks ago, we had all of our friends over for what we call Misfit Thanksgiving, which is anybody who doesn't have parents in the city or family locally that they can get together with. We have them over to our house, and I think this year we had about 18 over, so we catered a couple big turkeys in here. And, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then you can see we're sitting in the studio, and all the rest of the time is spent in here writing. So,
Okay, I'm going to be very honest with you. I have never met anyone that has run a golf course. So
Yeah,
can you just, if my dad were still alive, he'd actually want to know a little bit more detail. So let's pretend he's right here. How do you get involved in that?
got into it through playing. I was a pretty high level player for a long time, and at a certain point you realize that you're good, but you're maybe not quite good enough to make any money doing it. So I got into the industry that way, just so I could be around the game. It also affords, because it's like I start work some days at 4:30 in the morning, so it affords sort of half a day every day to do work on music and stuff like that. But I definitely got into it from a competitive playing standpoint. But I like that it's sort of a job where one day you're teaching, and then you're running tournaments, and then you're running a retail store, and you're mentoring kids. It's like a whole smorgasbord of different things that I like to do. And it's like that, every handful is different. Chex Mix or whatever it was, that you don't, every day doesn't look the same, where you're not going to a cubicle and punching the same data all day, every day.
All right, Simon, I'm going to throw the first icebreaker question at you. And I would like for you to tell the podcast listeners, since you are a big fan of music, can you name a song that makes you feel very nostalgic?
There's so many songs that take me back to certain points in time. And I mean, one of them, and this is going to maybe be a bit of a curveball for you, but one of them, because I'm having a hankering for doing karaoke. And when I do karaoke, I go in there and I just live in the 80s and get silly. And one thing that was in my head the other day was Father Figure by George Michael. Don't ask me why. It was just there, and I'm like, oh, welcome back, Father Figure, in my brain. And it kind of takes me back to a time when I lived in a different part of Toronto, and sort of the neighborhoods that were there and the people I was hanging out with. And also later on, a basement I used to shoot pool with some friends, and we'd put the George Michael Faith album on, and I'll sing along because we all knew it, even though we were grunge kids in the 90s. We're like, we've got this memorized, unfortunately. And yeah, so there's my answer for you, William.
That is good stuff. Here's a challenge for you. During this podcast, if you want to bust out a lyric or two, go for it.
You want to put your tiny hand in mine?
Oh my goodness. Where are we going with this? This is fun already. Okay, Mai, we're going to get off the music train here. I want you to think of a memory of a specific place or time, but with that memory, there is a smell involved.
A smell. Okay, a memory would be me getting, how do you say, foraging mushrooms with my family in one of the forests close to our house when I was like, I don't know, 6 or something. And it's that smell of rain and pine cones and, all the good stuff in the earth. Yeah, that would be it. By the way, I'm from Argentina, from the south, so it's Patagonia, and there's like lots of forests and like lots of nature out there. So that's what, my whole childhood was that. So that's what, comes to me right now.
Thank you for sharing that. In fact, I was just going to ask you, where are you from?
Yes. Yeah, I would recommend anyone, if you're interested in going to Argentina, it's like the most beautiful place. It's just like, it's kind of like BC or, lots of forests, lakes, mountains. It's like a wonderland of nature. Pretty cool.
Yeah, a place I've always wanted to go to, but
Nice.
just haven't done it yet. I'll get there one day.
Yes,
Thank
let
you.
me know if you do.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Cian. This one is for you. Would you like to travel to the past, or would you like to travel well into the future?
I think the future.
Why?
I know it's still completely unknown, I think we have an idea of what the past will be like, but the future is just, it's hard to predict what next week is going to be like. So far into the future, it's just going to be completely different, completely alien, like world, It's going to be more interesting.
Are you hopeful for our future?
Yeah, hopeful enough, I think I know people can get a bit doom and gloomy, but I always feel that, humans got this far. I think we can keep going on, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I've been talking to my podcast guests, quite a bit about AI. What are your thoughts on AI?
I don't know. So I'm a software engineer. So part of it terrifies me, but a part of it I find maybe not as big a deal as some people are making it out to be. And then sometimes I think it's just going to be like a really useful tool in the future. I really don't have one definitive feeling on those kind of three things: scary, exciting, maybe just a flash in the pan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, Colin, this one's for you. Are you ready?
Ready.
I want you to tell the podcast listeners, what is your favorite way to waste time?
I think as maybe stereotypical as it's going to sound, I can't think of a day where I don't pick up guitar and just sort of start, making nonsense chords, and eventually, hopefully, something comes out of it where you go, that's a really interesting thing that I hadn't done before. It doesn't have to result in anything, really. It's just looking for something that I hadn't thought of before, or like a dissonant chord that I hadn't ever played, or that may lead to something down the line. But I also, where I live in the city is right down by the lake. So I also do a lot of walking on the lake shore, and just thinking and that kind of stuff. But
Simon, we had on Friday a big album drop by this band called The Cure. And it exploded. As we knew, this was 16 years in the making. And I'm going to get to my question here. For me, very important, influential band. And one of the very first concerts I went to, 1987 in Oakland, had a big impact on me. Could you tell the listeners, Simon, that seminal moment, whether it be a concert, an album, a song, that really blew your mind away and kind of launched you into this whole music experience?
We've had this conversation before, adjacent on previous episodes that we've chatted together, and music was kind of always with me as I traveled and moved around a lot from city to city, and parts of Europe and Canada and all the rest of it. And so I found that a lot of my mental space and my entry into music was done via like a Walkman, and that basically was my entry point and the thing that actually kept driving me. But there are particular moments. So for example, the first time I I heard Velocity Girl on the radio. And so I was listening to McMaster, and Copacetic came on, and I was like, this blows my mind. I must find everything about this band and what they do. And it led me down a rabbit hole. And I remember I think not long after that, I saw Eric Tripp in concert for one of the first times. And it also blew my mind. So there was this time period in high school where I just kept having these moments with like indie rock music and just having like, okay, this is where I need to be. This is where I should be, and really diving in. And as you know, before that, I was into like heavy metal and hair metal, stuff like that. And so that shift was a big one for me, but it's the one that really stuck and led to where I'm at now.
So, Mai, what about for you? Was it Velocity Girl? Was it George Michael? What was the big bang here?
The big bang. It's hard to say because I've always loved music so much. I guess when I moved to Buenos Aires, I went to university there. That's when I went to my first shows. And I would go to like a show per week pretty much, or like at least a show per month. And you know how crowds are in Buenos Aires. They're just like insane. So I'll come back with like a bruised rib or whatever. Yeah, they're hardcore. But I guess the one I remember the most would be the National. They played a show like when they were touring for High Violet, I think it was. And they played at this like, not small, but like kind of more intimate space where they had tables. I went with my sister. We had a table there. And at the end, it was just like a party. And Matt, the singer, came to our table, like sat on my chair, like lifted himself up on my chair and started singing to everyone from my chair. I was like, what is happening?
Nice.
And obviously, I love the Nationals so much. They're just like insane. So that would be a big moment for me. And I was like, I was writing music at the time, kind of like to play around by myself, not really with anyone. And I was like, I need to kind of have this in my life more than, than just a hobby. Like it needs to be a constant in my life. And yeah, and then, well, obviously I moved here and met Colin, and that's another chapter. But I would say that moment was huge for me.
I love that story. And I have some really good news for you in case you didn't know this. Matt Berninger is still doing that kind of shtick, if you will. I just recently saw him like a month ago in Berkeley, and I think he was a little tipsy that night. But
all the wine is all for him.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah. What a great bear. Thanks for sharing. Okay, Cian, when did the doors open for you as far as music?
I think I was thinking about like the first concert thing when you're asking, and the one for me is one that I wasn't there, but it's the Neil Young Unplugged. So I grew up, my folks are big Neil Young fans, so I just grew up listening to that without even knowing, and I have like huge memories associated with that album. And ever since I picked up a guitar, I just tried to play like Neil Young, and that's kind of what I've been doing ever since.
So what about Neil Young's guitar playing inspires you?
It's like chunky and rhythmic, but also melodic at the same time. I don't know if he's like probably not necessarily recognized as like a great guitar player, but just the way he plays the acoustic guitar in particular is my favorite kind of type of, or style to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chunky. I think that's a great way to describe that style of playing. Yeah.
That's right. I love it.
Great. Okay, Colin, what about for you?
I grew up in a musical house in that they loved music. No one else really played music. I had the typical, like my dad was big into Neil Young, Gordon Lightfoot, like all that 60s folk, Chad and Russell Trio, that kind of stuff. And for some reason, I gravitated towards Buddy Holly when I was like 10 years old. I don't know what it was about Buddy Holly, but I just love Buddy Holly. My mom was that mom who would make up her own lyrics to every song that was on the radio and just sing the wrong thing, but it, in her own little way and clap in a weird way. But I think sort of my aha moment for me, for like musically, I would listen to what my family listened to, but I went to see Echo and the Bunnymen with the church at Varsity Arena when I was maybe 14. And it was probably my first big concert I went to with friends that wasn't sort of family related. And it got me on that path of that style of music, and just a phenomenal show, and became a huge Smiths fan. I remember my story being, my dad was supposed to drive me to a local mall where They were playing at a sort of a amusement park that's north of the city called Canada's Wonderland. That's sort of 4 kilometers north of the middle of the city, and I was living in the East End, so you could only get there by like a go bus, like by a Via Greyhound type of a bus without a car. And he at the last minute said, "Yeah, I'm not going to drive you." And I was panicking because the Smiths was my favorite band in the world, and I was like, panicking on the subway all the way to the mall, and then jumped on this bus, and I got there right as they started, and that era was really the moment for me where I sort of knew where musically I was. And it wasn't just sort of listening to whatever my sister was listening to, Jesse's Girl or whatever was popular then, or, one of those things. It was sort of like a musical identity that I, The Cure and Jesus and Mary Chain and all those great early 80s bands that were just sort of starting that scene.
Oh, Smiths. Never saw them.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw them. It was my favorite. I think the Pogues opened for them. Well, they might have been Cure, but the Pogues opened for one of those 2 bands at Canada's Wonderland.
Okay, stop it. I don't want to hear any more. Stop it right now. God, I just saw Johnny Marr play with James.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking the whole time, I was enjoying his performance, but I kept thinking, damn it. Why didn't I see this years ago?
Well, it sort of opens your eyes too, right? I mean, in terms of, like, he was the first guitar player that I remember that wasn't playing flashy solos. He was playing amazing sort of lead/rhythm parts all at the same time and filling out a whole orchestration with just this beautiful jangly, no big riffs, no big, just lush. Everything was great.
It's all good stories. What we're going to do now is transition into something a little goofy, but a little thoughtful here. This is called Spin the Rick Rubin Wheel. So I have a wheel on my screen, and I'm going to spin it, and it's going to land on one of these chapter titles. And then I'll read you a little passage, and you just respond the best way you know how to the passage. Sounds good? Okay, I'm going to spin the wheel. And so, Mai, we're going to start with you. Cool? All righty. Let us spin. This is called context. This is what Rick says. Imagine a flower in an open meadow. Now take the same flower and slip it into the barrel of a rifle or place it on a gravestone. Notice in each case how you feel. The significance changes. In new surroundings, the same object can take on considerably different meanings. The context changes the content. Some artists choose to control all these factors thoroughly. Others leave them to chance. Some create art that is completely context dependent. Andy Warhol's Brillo boxes, for example. In a grocery store, they are disposable packaging for useful kitchen items. In a museum, they're rare objects of fascination and intrigue. When sequencing a collection of songs, placing a quiet one next to a loud one affects the way a listener hears them both. After the quiet song, the loud one seems more bombastic. Context. However you'd like to respond to what Rick just said.
Well, I would like to respond kind of in a listener, like what the artist wants to say and what the listener receives. Say, for instance, if you're having a bad day, you react to a song a certain way. It's not always like a happy song will not change your mood. Sometimes it does. And also when we talk about, like me writing lyrics, I can say something and someone else can see, that means this, but I'm like, it doesn't, it means this. So I love that us as an artist, you can just say our experience, our point of view, and someone can always change that in their own minds. They can come up with their own significance to the song, like if they listen to the album when they're hanging out with their partner or whatever, if someone else, listens to the album when they're riding a bike by the shore, it's different meanings that you give to an album or a song.
May I ask you a follow-up question to what you just said?
Yes.
If someone contacts you via social media or talks to you at a show and they say, I love this song because it reminds me and it's about blah, 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 blah. And their description of the song is really way off the mark on what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
Does that ever happen? And how do you respond to that person?
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, but I don't think, it's valid as well. It's whatever you make out of it. It's as soon as we put it out in the world, it's open to anyone reinterpreting it as they want, right?
Yeah.
And the same way I have that feeling towards other artists. It's you take it and you make it your own. And I can tell you what it meant when I wrote it, but you have a different, story to add to it.
So with the collection of songs from Into the Blue Night, did the band really think about what Rick was talking about with regards to sequencing of songs in terms of their impact, whether it be loud or soft or rhythmic?
Yeah, I think we did. I would say we did. And we also thought a lot about, if you listen to it on vinyl, right? You have 6 and 6. How do you pair those 6 first and the other 6 and make the last one of the 6 a bit more punchy so that you want more, right? Like we finished the album with Diving In, which the ending is very like crazy, I would say. And you're like, wait, that's it, so it all has a logic. We did think about that. And yeah, we all had our own ideas of how to put it together. And we came up with something that works for all of us. So, yes.
And does that apply in a live setting as well, where the band democratically talks about that in very important set list?
Yes, definitely. Yes. I think every time we rehearse, we're like, does this work? Does this not work? But we kind of like now have our, our songs that we know that go great together. Like, for instance, the last 3, I'm sure I'm not going to spoil anything, but those are like the ones we like because they're kind of blending into each other. And the beginning has its own thing too. So it's kind of, it does have a structure that we really think of every time we play a show.
Thank you for answering. And I'm going to throw this right back up to Simon real quickly. You have touched on sequencing of your shows, the way the songs are laid out and the way that's just energy and flow. For people that haven't heard some of those conversations that we've had, can you just remind the listener, what's your approach to creating that context, that feel, that atmosphere?
So, I actually make playlists that I listen to, and I need to have some flow from one thing to the next, and I'll be listening to it in different contexts. I might listen to it in my living room through my stereo there, and then go for a walk and listen to it there. And what I'm trying to do is get sort of an emotional flow from one piece to the next piece and have it start off with, I usually start my shows with stuff that's heavier, a bit more in your face, a bit stronger. And then I like to go off in a more abstract or more synthy direction. And then I end with ambient stuff. That was not my intention when I first started the show. It was just like throw some tracks together. But then as I continued doing more and more shows, I found that I was gravitating towards that particular setup. And it makes me go through the range of emotions I want to feel. It's a self-indulgent project, really, doing these shows. And so it takes me through the journey I want to go through. And from talking to other people that enjoy the show, it's a similar experience for them. And people have actually spoken to me specifically, including Colin from Sunshine's Cold. He's like, you really pick your songs. You don't just put tracks together. I'm like, it has to flow for me. It has to give me that experience and that tingle, or else I'm not just going to include tracks for the sake of it. It's got to fit into the show.
I'm going to finish this one out. Rick says, one musician, I'm told, would add his newest track to a playlist along with the most beloved songs of all time to see if his work stood up in this context. If not, he would set it aside and keep working towards greatness. Context. Okay, let us spin the wheel. Here we go. Ooh. Try everything. Mm-hmm. Cian, this one is for you. Rick says, mixing blue and yellow makes green. Adding 2 + 2 makes 4. When combining basic elements in the ordinary course of life, much is predictable. In creating art, the sum total of the parts often defies expectation. Theory and practice don't always line up. The formula that worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. The proven solutions are sometimes the least helpful. There is a gap between imagination and reality. An idea might seem brilliant in our mind, but once employed, it might not work at all. Then upon execution, it might be exactly what is called for. So, trying everything, mixing all these different colors, the blues and the yellows. Could you tell us more about that, maybe in the work that you've done as a musician? Are you a person that likes to experiment and do a little bit of it, or are you very particular?
Yeah, so definitely not very particular. I think like going back to the try everything idea, just going through my head of all the bands I've been in over the years, from like, metal bands, folk singer, songwriter stuff, indie folk. I was recently in a pop punk band, what else is there? Like a kind of like a grungy punk band as well. So I definitely have like a wide range of influences that I think I bring to this band in particular. And then for the other thing that you're kind of touching on there is like the gap between what's in theory versus what's in practice. So whenever we're working on stuff together, I'm very much like I kind of write or work in the room with people. So Mai and Colin heard me say this loads of times, but I'm like, I need to hear this. I need to hear the part of the song in the context of the song. So like if we're working on a bridge, I don't want to just play the bridge over and over again. I want to play the song and then play the bridge and then play the outro, because I want to know how it's going to fit within there. Because like the theoretical idea of how it works doesn't always work when you come to actually play it,
So tell the listeners a song or two from the Into the Blue Night album that you can remember and constructing it, where it seemed like everyone was just kind of throwing stuff on the wall to see what was sticking. Just a lot of experimentation, and it finally came together.
I think the one that stands out for me is Chemical, and that kind of bass outro thing that we have there. And like my memory of doing that is like we were kind of had that song fairly well kind of put together. We were just working on that outro, and this is with our original drummer. He was kind of like, he was working on something super tight and kind of hip hoppy almost, this beat, and I had a big heavy bass riff, and it kind of just fell into. It was one of those things where like you played a bunch of times and it just fell together, and it was able to kind of like identify what he was doing with what I was doing. Maybe didn't make a whole lot of sense taken apart, like. But when you put the two of them together and you have the two of them like right beside each other, like a real loose bass riff with this real tight kind of snappy drum beat, it just pulled everything in real nicely. And then actually, Colin, your guitar part at the end of that so we were jamming one time. I don't know, it was like later on. I think it was before we recorded it though. I don't know why you were playing that thing, but I was just like, that guitar part should be the outro part for that song.
I'm just going to interrupt for one quick second. So that part Cian's talking about was so good, he and Ken, who was the original drummer, that that was only supposed to be an 8 or 16 bar breakdown. And it was so good what they were doing that it became like an outro, a whole second half overture. That's which would change the whole dynamic of that song in an amazing way.
these little nuggets. Thank you. Good stuff. We're going to spin the wheel. Colin, this one is for you. Ooh. Don't think I've done this one before.
Uh-oh.
This no pressure. This one is called momentum. When treated like the earlier phases with no boundaries or time constraints, the craft phase may extend longer than necessary. Once enough data is collected and the vision is clear, it can be helpful to set deadlines for completion. The options are no longer unlimited. The process is less open-ended. There may not be a clear finish line in sight, but the core elements are there. So imagine you have a script that has been translated to storyboard. Going from storyboard to finished film is somewhat of a mechanical process. There is art and inspiration involved, and there are a million choices to be made. Ooh, momentum. Go ahead, respond however you like to that.
Well, that's good. One of the things that we're sort of forced into, as you mentioned in the opening about the pandemic, was having a studio, both Mai and I having access to recording gear, and a style of writing sort of started to happen whereby I would come up with a part and I would send it to Mai for, she would start working on a lyric for that part or a melody for that part. And that would lead into the next part. And, creating that sense of flow. And much like Cian was just saying, there's that, how does that flow into that when you're not in a room together? And how do you create that momentum without being, without having the luxury of having 4 people brainstorming every part when you're forced to do it in a bedroom, in front of a computer screen? That's something that we've sort of become quite good at. And I think it sort of defies a bit of that definitive timeline thing. And we hadn't, said we're going to record this first record by this point. And so we have to have these songs finished by this point. But having someone to bounce it off of, sending it to Cian, sending it to Mai, sending it to the drummer at the time, and getting that, how do you create any kind of momentum that way, right? When you can't jam, you're not going to see them for 2 years, which was what turned out. I don't think we thought that at the beginning, but we knew that at the end. I always tell the stories that the last people in my house before lockdown was Cian, Mai, and Ken. We released the record a month later, and the next people in my house were Cian, Mai, and Ken 2 years later. Mm-hmm. When we had a listening party for the final mixes right before lockdown. But, I think for us, that's been both a challenge, but also a bit of a good thing because we are all very busy. I mean, both Cian and Mai are professionals, very successful in their fields of work, and are busy, and as am I. And being able to keep working on it while not necessarily having to go to a rehearsal studio for 12 straight hours to figure parts out for us has been really helpful.
Fascinating. That is really interesting. And I want to actually ask you another follow-up question here. He says, crafting contains a paradox. To create our best work, we are patient and avoid rushing the process, while at the same time, we work quickly without delay. By remaining too long in this phase, many pitfalls may arise. One is disconnection. What are your thoughts on that?
So, without naming any names, I played in a band before this one with an amazing singer. She was amazing, great singer, great writer, but the mood would have to be exactly right. She'd have to be in a bathtub with a glass of wine, and so, she'd have a song I'd written for 6 months and not have anything for it. And one of the things I love about Mai is the first we met off of Craigslist, as you mentioned. We went out for a drink and just chatted and set up if we were compatible. I sent her a song the next night. She sent it back to me the next day finished. And it's probably my favorite song, not because it's our best song, but because it holds a lot of, meaning to me that, that's how we work. Like I know that it's not, I wouldn't say job like, but it's, I spend a lot of time in here writing, and Mai dedicates time, as does Cian, as does Craig, to putting time in to make sure that when we get together, we're not we're not spending the first 1.5 hours of our 2.5 hour rehearsal learning a part. Like we sort of have ideas coming in. It allows us to do what Cian was mentioning earlier, where we can then bounce this new thought I had off of. And it's we know where it fits into the production. We know, what to, where we're going with it, but the work ethic and the importance, this plays a big part in all of our lives. It's our free time, our very limited free time. So that's been something for me, like having people who have the same, I say intensity, but I say commitment to producing something that we all love in the end. Whereas, you could, like you said, it could become lost in that stage of, I wonder if what's going to happen with this next. And, I think we work quickly that way, where we say, I don't like that. I like that. Let's move on. We love that. This song's done, unless we think of a new part and we go, what would sound good? This, and it happens very quickly, which I really like. And it's not that it's haphazard, like it's detailed and it's,
sure,
but it's not prolonged. It's not drawn out for the sake of like, maybe we'll think of something better 6 months down the road,
Oh my goodness, we could go off in so many different bird walks here. I this is the stuff I love, and it sounds like your band is very egoless.
They are.
I'd
say I have a bit.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is. We are in that, like, as I said. I mean, one of the hard things for me personally is, the first time Mai and I started working, before Cian was even in the band, and you sit with, like, it was pandemic, so we sat with these songs for a year. So, if I'd written something that I'd sent to Mai and I have listened to this version of this song for 6 months, and that's how you hear it from that. It's very hard to break out of this is how the song goes. And then Cian comes in with an incredible part, and you go, your ego says, my song was pretty good before this, but then you sort of you have to embrace a bit of the chaos and embrace a bit of the change. But I would say of all the people, I probably have the biggest ego from that perspective, for sure.
Yeah.
You do get over it though.
100%. 100%.
Which
Yeah.
is good. Like,
I trust everybody in our band to only do what's best for the song. Like, as soon as you put that, even Josh, our producer for the last record, I can clearly remember Mai and I talking as soon as we heard the first mix. It's like, what the hell is this? This doesn't sound like our song. Like, he put distortion on this, and there's no distortion on drums. And then we sat with it for 3 days. And I'm like, this is really good. Like, it took 3 days for the ego to go like, what does he know that we don't know? And then be like, how to mix a song properly. That's what he knows.
Rather than spinning the wheel again, Simon, can I lob this back over to you? So with regards to either your work or your DJ work, could you apply anything what was just said?
I mean, it's a different animal, because basically I'm a curator. So the pieces that are coming into me are already completed and done. It's not like I'm going to go in and change a song as it is. And so all I get to do is curate with the intentionality of creating an overall atmosphere. And so it's more, I think my sense, my place in what you've just described is more just in that curation and sort of putting things together and making sure that resonates with me. Because as I mentioned before, this endeavor is purely self-indulgent, and I'm okay with that. It's not like I'm out here doing this for somebody else. I'm doing it for me. I mean, I'm perfectly open about that, including the bands that I choose for the nights that I put on. It's because these are the bands I want to see play, and so those are the ones I'm going to reach out to and be like, all right, are you available? Same thing with putting together a show. Sometimes I'll reach out to certain bands, like, do you have any new music? They'll reach out to me. And it's really just about creating that overall atmosphere and vibe and resonance. But at the end, it comes back to my self-indulgence, my ego.
Okay. So take that ego, take that self-indulgence, take that curation, but it still has to go through a final hoop, right? Greg from DKFM, does he need to approve this curation?
Not really, no. He really does provide us with a lot of autonomy. I think for the first 2 or 3 shows that I sent him when I first started, he gave me a little bit of feedback. And so just little things like, this, that. As far as what I was choosing, I think he only made one comment about a song, and it was about its placement within where I put it in the show. He made one comment early on, and then right after he said it, I'm like, yeah, he was right. I should have put that somewhere else. But from like episode 4 and I'm on like episode 107. It's like he's just like, thank you. And then he does his magic and pulls it all together and does all of the transitions and mixing. And that's it. So it's really, he's wonderful in terms of the autonomy that he gives all of us to just program our shows.
It's a good boss to have, huh?
It is.
Let's wrap up this portion of Rick Rubin spinning the wheel. He says the danger of living with the unfinished project for too long is that the more often the artist is exposed to a particular draft of a work, the more final that form can become in their mind. Alrighty, so we're going to get to this part of the conversation where the band is going to analyze a song after we listen to it. This is a track from the album called Into the Blue Night. This is track number 7, All I Die For. Let's take a listen. Mai, do you want us to give us a little backstory to that one?
Yeah, sure. So that one, I think we had an idea of it right when we released our first EP. I think we had already some beginning of the song happening there. And I think, yeah, we finished writing it obviously during COVID, as mentioned previously. And I don't know, I remember I would take a lot of walks at the park here at Trinity Bellwoods in Toronto and just like hearing the music and trying to come up with images that would go well with it. And I just spent so much time just sitting in a park with my earphones and my like little notepad, trying to come, to some sense to that song lyrically. And then, yeah, it all came together. I don't know. It's always been such a good song for me. Like since the beginning, I was like, this has a lot of potential to be such an amazing song. It ended up being like, after we gave it to Josh, we recorded parts with him. I was like mind blown after I heard it for the first time. And I have to say that was the hardest when we were recording for me to sing that one. It was the hardest of the whole album because I don't know, I guess before my tone was like way lower. So when we were recording, I was like really struggling with it, but ended up managing to do it. And now, quick little fact, when we play it live, it's like a tone up so that I can sing properly. But it was, yeah, I would say it was like a struggle to record it, but such a great result. It just feels very natural. And I don't know, it's like really us, sonically.
It is a great song. I need to ask you, because it is such a terrific song, why number 7 on the album? I thought that might have been a little earlier.
Yeah, so we actually were, as I was mentioning previously, we wanted that one to be the first of the like second part of the vinyl. And yeah, that's just the way it came about. And it is great because you flip it and you get hit with that. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mai, do you like writing lyrics? Do you find that a fun process or very grueling?
Both. I would say I love doing it, but I do struggle sometimes. Like I need to have it needs to make sense, and I'll struggle with that sometimes because when I'm recording something, I'll start with a melody, right, and then I'm mumbling whatever, and I'm like, but that word would go so well, and then I'm like, it doesn't make sense. So it's a whole struggle with myself, but I do love that process. It's a lot of fun.
Simon, I want to ask you about this album. Are there any particular tracks or anything you want to share about this album that you really appreciate, or just the band in general?
Well, it's interesting because Colin sent along a preview of the album to me to listen over without saying what first singles were or any of that stuff whatsoever. He's like, here it is, like, have a listen. And I remember him even saying, like, you can go through and maybe pick what song you like best. And this is the song that I picked. And so I heard All I Die For. And to me, it was like, there was just such sparkle in that track and such a wonderful hook that was the song I was humming in my head. Like, after listening to it once or twice, it had already implanted itself into my brain. And so that for me was the standout track on the album. Because the little joke that I have now, I don't know if they realize it's a joke or not, but I'll walk up to them after they play and I go, so you guys didn't play Fill Me Up. Like, what's going on with that? And it's from their first EP. That was the song that was stuck in my head and it got replaced. So 2 wonderful songs.
Colin and Cian, what do you want the listener to take away from this experience from the album? What is it you want them to feel?
I think one of the things that I like best about what we do is that, and I think Mai touched on it earlier, is that, it is context dependent. I listen to songs in different spots and different moments. And what I like most about her writing is that it's so imagery laden. It's not necessarily storytelling from I went to the store, I was listening to Elliott Smith the other day and he's in the Rose Parade song and he's going like, I kicked the dog with a choke chain collar. I traded a smoke for $1. Like, it's very linear storytelling writing. It's phenomenal. But what I like about Mai's writing is it's so imagery laden that you can almost hear anything you want, anything that you believe is happening, even if it's not what's happening. And, I just encourage people to listen to her and listen to what she says and just really dive into what it means to them and how it makes them feel. And, that's what I like most about the record is just that I can listen to it and just get lost in the poetry.
Very nice words. Cian, what about you?
Honestly, I would say take anything. I'm kind of like, it's a privilege to have anybody listen to your music, I think. So if somebody's engaged in our music, they can take whatever they want as far as I'm concerned.
Gratitude. I like it. Mai?
I don't know. Like, yeah, make it your own. Like, use it on your life as you wish. It's a hard question.
It is, but I get different answers sometimes when I ask that question. And those are the gifts as a musician that you can hand over to us, right? And we can interpret it however we want. And then we could sling it back to you with our interpretations and write to you and share what we appreciate about it. God, that just must be such a rewarding experience.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we're very lucky that we could do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of experience, I believe, Simon, we have a show coming up. You want to tell us more about this?
Yeah, for sure. So SWiiMS, the wonderful band joining us today, are playing with some other fantastic bands, Fires of Cheektowaga, Luster Dust, and Otsuda, which is the guitarist from Blankenberg, if people know that particular band, who lives in Toronto. And so that lineup we've got playing November 23rd at the Baby G in Toronto. Tickets are available. You can buy them ahead of time and you can get them at the door. And so we're hoping to have a wonderful, wonderful event. We had one earlier in the year. Back in March, we had a wonderful time at the Baby G. People of all ages. That's what really struck me when we looked around the room. Went, wow, there's the youngsters. There's the people that are in their 20s and 30s. There's the people that are 60s, and we were all together appreciating our shoegazy, dream poppy, indie poppiness together. And I can't wait for November 23rd. So yeah, join us if you can, if you're in Toronto.
Yeah, no, I didn't get to attend that show, but I remember speaking with you in the bands for a podcast, and I remember the energy kind of building and swelling. And I remember also the photos that were coming in from that night just looked like a fabulous time. And it looks like an incredible venue.
It's one of those venues that I go to see the bands I want to see. when they come into town. It's the size of venue and the atmosphere that brings in the right kind of indie band, in my opinion. So you get in there, and I've seen some really cool shows there. I remember seeing Palm there a few years ago, and it just blew my mind. And I saw Drab Majesty there when they first headlined in Toronto. They played there, and that was an outstanding show. And so they have really cool up and coming acts that come through town, and then they also support some really nice local events as well. And I have to give a shout out to A Minor as well. They're the crew, Mike and those guys that are helping us put this whole show together. And of course, Firestick Tawaga is like my house band, and so they're doing a lot of the legwork behind the scenes as well, reaching out to people and organizing promo and stuff like that. So anyways, I can't wait. It's going to be lots of fun.
Okay. So now this is where I get even more excited talking about live performances. So Mai, I'm going to toss this one over to you. I don't know how long your set is going to be. 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. I'm not sure. Do you know?
45, I believe.
Okay. So, but what will the band do to prepare to make that 45-minute set just be dynamite? And how do you prepare? And what can people expect?
Great. Preparing. We're preparing every week. We're rehearsing every week. We're trying to sound very tight. And I think on the stage, what we always try to do is just like have as much fun as we can. We just like, just have fun, let it all loose. And the crowd sees that, and it's always a great time. But it has to be a good time. Otherwise, people see through you. So you have to, bring all your energy and just play a great show and have fun.
Will you be bringing in tracks maybe from the EP, or will you be doing any cover songs?
We have, yes, we're playing tracks from the EP, from the LP. We have a cover. We'll see if we can play it. To be honest, we've just started rehearsing last week. Hopefully we can. We are not sure. I don't want to promise anything.
Yeah.
We are working on it, and if it's not this show, it'll be the next.
I mean, who knew that Father Figure would be the cover song, right?
Just for Simon.
All right, Colin, Cian, what are your thoughts on this upcoming show?
I just want to clarify that I am a material girl. I know what the cover's going to be, but I am a material girl, and this is a material. I'm just going to say that, but not tell you what the cover is.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
Honestly, I love playing with these guys. It's so much fun. Even when you're grinding out, like Mai said, we released a cover with our record label about a month ago, 3 weeks ago for a comp that they did. And it's one of my favorite songs from the 80s that hopefully we get to do it. It was it didn't sound too bad, but at the end, it was the first time we played it. We had a baby to worry about. And then our drummer fell down and hurt her shoulder. So we've been off for a couple of weeks trying to, so we lost a couple of weeks of rehearsals in there. So we're hoping to this next week to try and see if we can get it playable. But yeah, I love that until we're the national size, which it should be next week, I think, next 2 weeks or so. We don't do a lot of like in between song storytelling. We like to let we sort of keep it going and let the music talk for itself and just bring energy, feed off the energy of the crowd and hopefully give some back to them.
Cian.
Yeah, I mean, kind of just the same as what Colin and Mai were saying. For me, playing live is the most fun thing of everything. I love it. Yeah. We've had talks about this, and my rule number one for me is have fun. That's rule number one. So yeah, it'll just be go fun. One thing that we can promise is free buttons. We always have free buttons
stickers
on our shows
and stickers.
So yeah, that'll be there.
We're also debuting a brand new limited edition T-shirt logo, I might add, designed by our own lovely Mai Diaz Langou.
Damn it! I gotta get my ass up there.
Yeah, we rehearse a lot, and we do have like a super tight set list, So mistakes are gonna come, but it's not like loose. It's pretty tight, but it's important to kind of enjoy yourself while you're doing it.
You don't have to tell us any name of the songs, but will there be an extension of a song? Maybe a 3-minute song, carry it into 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes. Do you do that kind of stuff?
We have one that we do that with at the end of the set.
Okay.
We've written a new ending just more of a fun outro. That's, I wouldn't say it's a minute long, but yeah.
And Mai, for you, as far as being the vocalist up there, all good? Do you get butterflies? Do you pace before shows? What kind of?
I definitely do. It was, we played your first show, and was it a year ago? Like, it hasn't been that long. So I would say it's a big difference to what the first show was. I'm more calm now, but I do get the butterflies. It's always, you're up on a stage. Like, how could you not get nervous? But now I obviously, with these guys having so much fun around me, it's just, like, everything's going to go well. We are prepared. We're ready. And it's always a great time. At the end of the show, I'm like, that was awesome. It's so much fun.
Awesome. And Simon, real quickly, where can people get tickets for this?
If you just Google online and you look through A Minor, they've got their ticket link. We've got a Facebook group for the event as well. And as I mentioned, you can buy tickets at the door, and so they'll be there. And yeah, they're available. They're not that expensive. It's for a good cause of awesome music, and it'll be a fantastic time.
Okay, let's move the needle over one more groove. And right now, our guests are going to share some recommendations. I've asked them to come to today's discussion suggesting things for our audience. Could be movies, podcasts, it could be albums, whatever they want to share. Mai, go for it.
Yeah. Many, many things. I might start with some music. I'm going to recommend an artist from Argentina. Her name is Marilina Bertoldi. She's pretty well known there, but for anyone that's like English speaking, she sings in Spanish. She is badass. I would say she's kind of like the Argentinian St. Vincent or something like that. Really, really interesting. She shreds live. I have never seen her live, but I've seen videos of her playing live, and it's just insane. So I would recommend her, Marilina Bertoldi. She has a couple of albums right now, and the latest one I think was released last year, I think. Yeah, I would say look her up. She's badass.
Love it. Any other suggestions?
TV shows, I would say The Bear. It's also a very popular one, but so good. Yeah, I'm waiting for the third season to be available to me. I think it's out already, but yeah, I don't have it on my streaming platforms, but it's so good.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Thank you for your suggestions. All right, Cian, what about for you?
So one thing I got back onto recently, there's this band called The Chariot. They're like a hardcore band from Atlanta. And there's a really good documentary about them. It's like their last ever tour. And they have someone record the whole thing. It's on YouTube. I think it's just The Chariot Farewell. It's like a 20, 30-minute video. But it's just them doing their last tour. It's like super emotional. It's a hardcore tour. So they're playing in like a school in tiny little like crappy bars and like loads of slow-mo stuff, mosh pitting going on. That's well worth a watch if anybody wants to watch that. And the music, I got into a band called Strand of Oaks recently. I don't know if anybody knows them. It's like a indie folk kind of stuff. He has a song called Two Kids, which kind of got me in. So yeah, that's kind of like the newest band I got into recently.
So two kids like Gibson and Lucy.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
In that order.
Yeah.
All righty, let's lob it over to Colin.
Music, it's funny what Simon was saying earlier about this. I don't know if it's a resurgence of shoegaze, but Drop 19's just put a new record out, and I went to see them on Tuesday. We share. Their manager is our guy at our sync licensing guy. He happens to be their manager, so he put us on the list, and we went and saw them the other night. They were phenomenal, and their new record's really good. I get most of my recommendations from listening to Simon, actually.
You too, huh?
Every time you I've listened to about 5 now, and he recommends 2 or 3 every time. I've bought them all on Apple Music, and they've all been good. So he's batting 1,000 with me right now with music. So listen to Simon, you'll get your music recommendations from there.
It pisses me off because it's like, how much more money do the whole DKFM team? I'm like, oh my God. Other than Vinka, who I cannot keep up with all the Bandcamp purchases, it's just one after another.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very good. It's a great spot for music. It's funny when Mai was saying that Rick Rubin book is on her list. She actually gave me that book last year for Christmas, and it's in my pile of reading to do. I'm almost finished the last book in my pile, and Rick Rubin's the next read. So thank you, Mai. TV, we started watching the new season of Shrinking on Apple TV.
Yeah.
It's funny. Harrison Ford's always funny because he's always grumpy.
No, he's not.
No, exactly. He's just such a lighthearted guy. Yeah, there's mine.
Let's nerd out, shall we, Simon?
If you insist.
Go for it.
So this was what I knew this was coming in this chat, and we haven't had our usual, record purging. Well, for me, it's almost purging in a sense, where I would sit here and just like inundate you with recommendations for an hour. And so I'm like, how do I narrow down 10 months worth of stuff into one comment or a few comments, I guess. And the thing that I have to tell people about that I'm like, you have to check them out. There's a band called SWiiMS. They're originally from BC. They just relocated to Brooklyn. And I've been chatting with them a little bit on social media because I want to try to get them to come up and play Toronto. They're not really, they're playing some shows in Brooklyn, but they're just sort of cutting their teeth and getting started there. But their album, it's so funny because I'm used to the show being a video show. So I always have the vinyl right next to me in case I need to show it on the screen. So I'll show it to you guys. And so they're just basically that generation I was talking about that have embraced that grungy shoegaze combo. And they're probably, they've got to be in their early mid-20s. And lovely folks, really fun to chat with. And this album right now is probably my album of the year. And it's If You Were Here, I'd Be Home Now by SWiiMS. Check it out. Really, really great stuff. You want more?
You know me and you're nerding out. I love it. So if you want to do one more two, that's fine.
So the other album that I see going around that people should really listen to is the Clinic Stars album. Yeah. And so these folks, it's a Michigan kind of like hazy noise, slowcore, shoegazy combination style band. And they just played with Wendy and Carl recently because Wendy and Carl reformed to play a handful of shows. The Clinic Stars played with them at like a Cranky showcase. And this is just a beautiful, ethereal, melodic, noisy record and really wonderful headphone music and just cool stuff. So I wanted to make sure that I gave them a shout out when I had the opportunity. And last one, Orcas. And so Orcas, they have, the last time they put an album was like 2014. So it's been about 10 years. And this new record from them is phenomenal. Really, really cool stuff. And if you look at the members of the band, I'm not going to say who it is, you start to recognize their names in production and sound engineering from other albums that you love. So it's like taking the behind the scenes people from stuff and giving them their own band. And they do a phenomenal job of making like ethereal dream pop, but more experimental and interesting. And so, Orcas, check it out. There, I'm done.
Oh, no. Oh, good. Yeah, great suggestions. And that Clinic Stars album is, that's fantastic. We're going to play a game called Guess the Album that I'm holding in my hands. Each of you are going to get 3 questions. My answer to each one of your question will be yes or no. After all of you have done your 3 questions each, then you can guess the name of the artist and the album. If you get the name of the artist right, you all get 1 point. If you get the name of the artist and the name of the album correct, a whopping 5 points. I'm going to give you a couple clues, and if I feel like you're really sweating on the screen, I might throw you another clue or two. 80s, hyper cheesy, yellow. Simon, what is your first question?
Is it a band?
It is a band. Mai.
Is this a pop album?
Sure. Colin.
Is this new wave?
Some would say it is. What? Cian.
Is the band from Europe?
No. Simon.
And was this like a really popular thing? Was it top 5 on the charts?
Yeah, I would think so. Okay, Mai.
Does this band have a male vocalist?
Yes. Good question. Colin.
Does this band wear flower pots on their heads?
I've never seen flower pots, but it wouldn't surprise me. Cian.
Is the band American?
No.
Not European, not American.
Okay, you guys all want a big clue?
Yeah.
They are Canadian. I had to throw that in there.
Was the Safety Dance one of their songs?
Yes. Mai, you get a question.
Oh my God. Can I give my question to Colin?
Yes.
I'm not good at
They
this.
from Montreal?
Yes.
Is the band Men Without Hats?
Ding, 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 ding. It is Men Without Hats, Rhythm of Youth. There you have it, everyone. Okay, rapid fire questions. Here we go. I'm just going to throw out some stuff. You just answer real quickly. Simon, let's start with you. Are you coffee or a tea person?
Tea.
Mai, name the last live concert you went to.
Cobra.
Colin, currently, who is your favorite actor?
Gary Oldman's always my favorite actor.
Cian, name a movie that you could watch over and over again.
The Warriors.
Oh, boy, yes. Simon, which TV show would you love to feature in?
Mai's mentioned I'd love to be in The Bear.
Mai, this one is for you. Tell us a compliment that you've received recently that made you feel good.
People want someone like me. People want more of me in the world. That's what someone told me the other day.
Oh, I like it. Colin, are you more of a beach or a mountain person?
Mountain.
Cian, if you were to write a book about yourself, what would be the title of that autobiography?
Good vibes.
Okay, Simon, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Chocolate. Peanut butter.
Mai, do you like camping?
I love camping.
Cian, if you could teach one subject at school, what subject would it be?
Art.
Colin, what is your kryptonite?
Laziness? Chocolate almonds are the older one, yeah. And peanut butter.
Simon, what's coming down the line for you in 2024 and beyond? What can we expect?
Well, there's definitely the show at the Baby G on November 23rd, which I'm looking forward to. Other than that, lots and lots of psychotherapy with some wonderful folks. That's definitely in my future as well. And I'm teaching again a little bit. And so I'm teaching evenings and doing psychotherapy during the day. So Simon's a busy fella.
Okay, Mai, what's coming down the line for you?
Well,
Anything
I'm
you wanna
very
share?
excited to start writing new songs with the band, sitting my butt down, writing those lyrics and rehearsing new songs. And I'm also starting singing lessons, which I've never done before. So I'm very
Wow.
excited about that and just improving my art. And yeah, I'm also going on vacation with my family in February.
Good for you in challenging yourself with your
Thank you.
lovely singing pipes. It's great. Colin, what about for you?
I'm winding down at work and I'm going to take a few months off and really get back in here as a sort of a full-time thing in the studio right in here because no one else can see my screen but you. And yeah, and you know, we typically have a nice quiet Christmas because most of our family members are not with us anymore. So we enjoy just curling up and, you know, just binge watching a whole bunch of TV and movies and the usual stuff. So I'm excited for that.
Cian, let's wrap it up with you.
The rest of the year, well, I'll be changing some nappies, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah. Changing nappies, trying to help keep my wife sane, you know, getting up in the night, feeding the baby, walking around. Probably writing lots of crappy baby songs is what I'll be doing the next while. Yeah. And I'm working with SWiiMS on new stuff and moving into a new house as well, pretty close to Colin. So we'll be able to.
All right. It's been a fantastic conversation. Simon, Mai, Colin, Cian, really enjoyed our talk. And again, have a great time at the Baby G event, November 23rd. 23rd, Saturday, and tickets are still available. And, you know, if you're looking just for a great night of music, good energy, and great community, this sounds like the place to be. Yeah? My name is W, also known as William, host of the High Art on the Edge page, host of this podcast feature called Surprise Cast. And remember, great music is out there. You just need to have your ears open. Ciao. Wait. Don't go anywhere. Why? I wanted to share more music with you. Enjoy these 3 magnificent songs by Fires of Cheektowaga, Atsuda, and Luster Dust. All 3 of these bands will be playing on November 23rd at Baby G with SWiiMS. Thank you for supporting them. And finally, I have a surprise cast trivia question for you all. What is the name of one of the bands that Simon mentioned that he saw in concert at the Baby G? This band is from Los Angeles. You get 1 crack at the answer. If you think you know it, please email me at h.i.art@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time. I am super grateful.